Hey, welcome everyone to the Prophecy Roundtable. We promise an insightful and somewhat entertaining chat. Hopefully, it's entertaining. We're going to look at prophecy, and tonight, look at here. We've got the full lineup. I'm really excited about this. Boy, some of these guys are really sporting some pretty amazing backgrounds there. I feel kind of left out here. John's in Babylon. Doug is in some really fancy posh house.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, there you go, man.
Yeah.
So tonight we have Doug Woodward here. He's going to talk about his new book, and will Babylon be rebuilt in the last days? This is kind of exciting. Of course, first we have to determine what is Babylon. That's our first question. If you guys have some thoughts, something you would put in the chat, please do so. We'll do our best to get to those comments or questions. If it is a question, put the letter Q in front of it, and that really helps us to determine that you're asking something and not just yakking in the chat, which is fine if you do. So tonight's question: will Babylon be rebuilt? Oh boy, what a question! What a question! So this is pretty exciting. So what we're going to do tonight is Doug is going to share with us maybe about 10 minutes of some of the things that he's put together. And then we're going to, of course, critique that. That's what we do here in a very loving and brotherly way. And, you know, we may agree, we may not. That's all part of the fun. But looking forward to that. So, Doug, thanks for coming back on. We're really glad to have you again.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. When I found out I was going to do this, I was just super excited. I'm really happy. I feel, like I'm a stranger, but hopefully I won't feel that way when we get going. I might feel miserable that you guys have beat me up, but
we beat up nicely.
That's all right. Okay, well, we're trying to get you the copy here of this guy. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. Just copying the file right now is a trick.
It's a big file. It's a very big file.
I tried to send it to you. I don't know if it's
it's something came through, but it's super duper big.
Yeah, 38 meg or something like that. So
it says 205 megabytes. So
who
knows? But
that's weird. 38.
Why don't you just kind of take us through? Maybe we can't have any slides here, but kind of give us some of your thoughts, your main points. I think that would probably be
sure
just as well.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Well, so the issue about rebuilding Babylon, it came up. There's I'm trying to think of the guy that I wrote the book in critiquing here. Hold on a second. I got to find his name because otherwise it's going to be silly. No, here he is. It is all right, there it is. Andy Woods. Andy Woods, a good dispensationalist brother. But he wrote a book recently called Babylon, the Bookends of Prophetic History. And he argued that his real focus is around Revelation 17 and 18, arguing that the Babylon in both of those chapters of Revelation are the same Babylon. All right. And then he's basically also saying that the Babylon that's spoken of in Jeremiah 51, that it also is the same Babylon. So there's really one Babylon that's in the Bible, essentially. And he interprets the Bible extremely literally. And so, I'm challenging him on that. All right. In fairness to him, there are there's a lot of other people that go along and agree with him, such as Chuck Missler, Joel Rosenberg, Mark Hitchcock, Arnold Fruchtenbaum. Not too many post-tribbers in that group.
I agree with him.
But yeah,
what it's worth.
And then there's like Hamp. All right. And then there's quite a few folks like myself that question it. Hal Lindsey certainly would, Bill Salas, Gary Stearman, Joel Richardson, because he's into the Islamic Antichrist theory, Frank Logsdon, and Noah Hutchings, the brothers that have passed on quite some time ago into the heavenly kingdom. J.R. Church, I think it was R.A. Coombs, Stanley Monteith. So there's a lot of us that are out there that tend to believe that America, the United States, has some involvement, in this last days. I will argue that the U.S. that there's really three Babylons in the last days. The U.S. is the fulfillment of the daughter of Babylon in Jeremiah 50 and 51. And the Babylon of Revelation 17, to me, looks like a religious Babylon, and the Babylon of Revelation 18 looks like an economic, political Babylon, although politics sort of overlaps both. All right. So, all right. Now, I'm going to just touch on some of the key prophecies that these are things that Andy Woods really brings up, that he believes these are things that must be in play before Babylon can be rebuilt, and if it hasn't been, then that means that there's still yet it's still a future event, basically. So he's definitely a futurist. All right, so he says the day of the Lord points to the future. All right, so that's Isaiah 13. He believes that there are great cosmological events that will signal its happening, Isaiah 13, 10 through 13. The whole world will suffer when it occurs, Isaiah 13, 11 through 12. And complete destruction. Not even bricks will be used again there, Jeremiah 51. When destroyed, the Jews will flee. After Babylon falls, the Jewish nation will be restored. So he believes that it's really a key point. The slide, by the way, we'll make this slide presentation available. I guess you can do that, Doug, in the show notes or whatever. But I can also make it available. I actually have a full video on it. I can point people to in my YouTube site. This is just a snippet from it. But anyway, the most popular discussions about where is Babylon would certainly be the Babylon of today, which today is predominantly just a small rebuilt tourist attraction. Mecca, if you believe in the Islamic Antichrist. Rome is the traditional view of Hal Lindsey, Bill Salas, and most dispensationalists. New York City, a lot of other folks that are probably dispensationalists, but not necessarily, believe that the United States uniquely satisfies the prophecies in Jeremiah 50 and 51, and that they really cannot be force fit into the Babylon of the ancient Babylon of Nebuchadnezzar, and they really don't fit the attributes of the Babylons talked about in Revelation 17 or 18. Jerusalem, of course, is also viewed as Babylon by some, like Chris White argues that Jerusalem is Babylon. Okay, so let's see here. Just a couple more things. The Euphrates. Mark Hitchcock says, and he does believe that Babylon will be rebuilt into a metropolis. He goes, these references in Revelation 17 and 18 point to Euphrates, that the Euphrates, that something important and evil is occurring there. The rebuilt city of Babylon on the Euphrates, functioning as a great commercial and political center for Antichrist, is a good explanation for this emphasis on the Euphrates River in Revelation. So, in other words, in Revelation chapter 9, we remember that the Euphrates is dried up to make way for the kings of the east. And so their assumption then is that chapter 9, it wouldn't be chronological, and that chapter 9 is a reference to the final battle of Armageddon, and that the armies from the east come through Babylon, and then they make war upon not only Babylon but then Israel. All right. So it raises some interesting questions, of course. So there's a lot of metaphors that are confusing, of course, in Revelation. The metaphors tend to talk about things other than necessarily an actual city. Revelation 17:15 talks about the waters, our peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. In Revelation 17:9 through 10, the seven heads that define Revelation itself defines what the seven heads are. The seven heads are seven hills on which the woman sits. They are also seven kings. Again, so this is moving away from a literalism, even in the book of Revelation itself. And then Revelation 17:3 implies that Babylon is not a city. It says the angels carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness, where John, of course, views Babylon. One could argue that the wilderness in Iraq is definitely a wilderness. Of course, there's the issues of it's not a city on the waters. The waters are far, far, far away. Used to be back in the day of Hammurabi when he built this massive canal system. But anyway, let's see. What else should I share? Oh, City on Seven Hills. That is a very popular discussion. How Lindsay believes that cinched it, that meant it was Rome, because Rome was the ancient city on seven hills. But the analysis I did and what I present is that there's actually 70 different cities that talk about being a city on seven hills. Certainly Rome, but also Washington, D.C., Brussels, Moscow, Mecca.
Cincinnati, Ohio.
There you go. Cincinnati, Ohio would be one. Hi, John Heller.
All right.
I'll bet you Birmingham, Alabama probably has seven hills.
I'll tell you what, it's a common thing. Prague. So I listed I have pictures of just the ones that are the most prominent and are usually picked out as, sort of the center or focal point of the end days. And so the question partly becomes, is Babylon a location or is it a system? Is it a city or is it a system? And so we can talk about various kinds of systems. Certainly the Masons, that's always been, they've always been kind of the bad guys. But it goes kind of beyond that. When you're looking at America and the symbolism of America, it's not just Freemasonry, but a number of other things that are associated.
Doug, can I interject real quick to answer your question? Oh, yes. Sure. In other words, is it a city? Is it a system? Is it all the above? Yes. Yes. Sometimes the answer is yes. It's not an either or. It's a yeah, and
right. Now, Andy Woods would argue that it's not a system, and he makes strong arguments against that. I believe that it is a system, but I also believe that there are physical locations, as I detail in the book. Oh, let's see. So I argue there are three Babylons. There's sort of Neo-Babylon, which was Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon in 586 BC. The Babel was really Babylon, 3100 BC. And then there's today's Babylon, 2022, or whenever Babylon becomes instantiated as Babylon. And but there's you can look at 5 different possible Babylons in the Bible. So shrinking it to one is probably, in my view, kind of simplistic. Oh, just to wrap up, there's a lot of voices that have believed that the USA is Babylon, and so John Price, Patrick Heron, J.R. Church, R.A. Coombs, Stanley Monteith. I mentioned Logsdon and Hutchings. So there's quite a number. And of course, if you go out and look on Amazon, you'll find a dozen books talking about America as Babylon. So I'm not the only person that's actually made the argument, although I would argue that I'm probably have some of the strongest arguments assembled for that. So
and Doug Krieger, who has been a guest on the show.
yes, Mr. Krieger. Well, he wrote a book with me called The Final Babylon, as Dean McGriff, and that was the book that was kind of our bestseller, and it makes a strong case that America, that starts off, the book starts off and says, Rome has not been revived. And so seeing Rome as the 10-nation confederacy.
It never went away. It just morphed into, I believe right now, America is the big festering right toe of the Roman beast system. I mean, infected and green almost. And that's what America is as far as Rome versus Babylon. If we start looking at the beast versus Babylon, the religious system, versus the beast, the political system, but they're all like
there's interrelationship. What I end up showing, and maybe I should save it for a little bit later in the show in terms of why I can get it down so succinctly to 3 Babylons and demonstrate that they really are different, the way the Bible articulates the attributes and what happens and when it happens. But anyway, I'll stop right here and say, if it looks like a duck, waddles like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
So Andy Woods in his book, which I've listened to some of his series. I will confess I haven't read the book. And as soon as I say something like this, it's, I get these comments all the time. Oh, you're just trolling him again. You troll him all the time. Why don't you so I mentioned him by name this time. Okay.
Right.
I know him. I actually had lunch with him a few months ago. So, and we had a great talk, and, but we disagree very, very strongly on a few things. One of which would be this. So, but he would say so when, Peter writes to those in Babylon, who do you think, who's he writing to? Yeah. Is he using, now I think Andy would say, and I don't want to misrepresent him, but I think he would say he's writing to Christians in Babylon.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think no, he was writing Rome was a.
Wait a minute.
A
So Andy, Babylon
was
was practically uninhabited, and Andy Woods is trying to make the argument.
Babylon
at that time.
Babylon was the third largest Jewish center in the ancient world.
No. At the time that Peter was writing his letter, it was not.
It was the third largest.
Okay.
Have you heard of the Babylonian Talmud?
I have.
But the timing, but the Talmud wasn't really kicked off until the 4th century. It was written and compiled between 300 and 500 A.D.
Right.
And,
okay.
But
I would also recommend,
but Babylon was the third largest.
No, I disagree.
Yes, it was. No, listen. Sorry, guys, you're wrong. I studied under Isaiah Gaffney of the Hebrew University. He was a genius. He's one of the foremost scholars on this thing. And Babylon was a major center. It was the third major center. Jerusalem, Alexandria, Babylon.
So, sorry. Doug, would you say, Dr. Hamp, excuse me, would you say then that
whatever
that the prophecy regarding the destruction of Babylon has never been fulfilled? Is that what you would say?
That's what I would say, yes.
Okay. I'm going to swerve off for just a second. I would highly recommend, and I know I've seen him criticized a lot, Joel Kramer, a friend of mine. He has a new YouTube channel called Expedition Bible. He's an archaeologist, and one of his videos, it's only like 6 or 7 minutes long. He went to Babylon in Iraq, and he filmed it, and he says, see, this has all been fulfilled. So now a lot of people who say, oh, no, Babylon's coming back, and it's going to be destroyed in the future, and hasn't been fulfilled. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and all that stuff. And Joel knows Bible prophecy too. So I'm just saying, so there's a disagreement.
When, according to his and his expertise would be archaeology, when did he believe that Babylon was destroyed as far as the fulfillment?
I don't really remember that.
Yeah,
but he just says it's a place of jackals. It's uninhabited. Certainly, it's not it's not what it was. There's a city close to it, but the Babylon that was there is complete. It's just a little tourist.
Let me make one point. The Seleucid Empire, that I believe was in the 2nd century BC, depopulated Babylon and pulled everyone up to near Chalcedon, up into that area where Seleucia was, Chalcedon, and across the straits into Turkey. There's a couple of situations like that. I think that it's an interesting question. I don't believe that when Peter was writing in the sort of 60, 65 time frame, that he was in Babylon. I think he was in Rome. Now that's
disagree, but that's okay.
It's a kind of in a way, it's kind of
that's why we had you on the show. So
it's kind of a minor point in a way, but
it's one of those things that becomes gospel truth for some people, that Peter was writing from Rome, but not at all. I again, respectfully, Doug, I would disagree with you that Peter was writing to the third largest Jewish center, from the third largest Jewish center in the world, which was ancient Babylon. Now, it's not the same city that is in John's background. Okay, that Babylon, that Neo-Babylon, they're really made pretty by Nebuchadnezzar and all that stuff. That was very much in decline, very much in decline. But remember when Alexander the Great came in, it was still a thriving place. Okay. And then, as you said, in the Seleucid Empire, it was crumbling. Let's put it that way. Right. So the question is, was it destroyed? Not in my opinion. Did it sort of fall away?
I agree with that.
Yes. Did it kind of just crumble into not too much? Yes. But, but then, I live in Denver, but then I don't really live in Denver. I live in the suburbs of Denver. Okay. And so I would suggest that we have a similar situation. The Jews in the 1st century were not living in Babylon proper. They were living in Greater Babylon, okay, which was still called Babylon. And that's one reason you have the Babylonian Talmud. As to your point, it wasn't even codified until the 3rd, 4th century AD. So there you go, right? One more reason that you have the third largest Jewish center in the world
could
was
it
in
be,
Babylon.
But could it be that again, Judah definitely got dispersed and scattered after 70 AD, in that general time frame, when their house was left them desolate. Obviously, it got even more desolate around 132 to 135 AD, and they got scattered even more. Yeah. They got dispersed as bad as we Israelites got dispersed. We have the house of Israel, so we went everywhere, and then everywhere.
So the question was brought up: is Babylon a city or a system? And I would suggest that it's both. And per this question, I really think it's kind of like Hollywood. Hollywood is very much a city. If you go there, it's a literally lousy tourist trap. It's kind of boring, and it's very much a letdown.
Yeah,
but it's also a system, right? And so when we talk about Hollywood, we're usually talking about the system versus the city. But I think we can't take away Hollywood the city, right? Because that does have some significance to this whole question. And I would say that Babylon the city started with Nimrod, right, in the land of Shinar, which is the land of Mesopotamia. It means the two rivers. That's where we get that. It's the land of Sumer, right? That's the area that Babylon or Babel, the gate of the gods, was actually constructed in. And then
of course, that's an interesting question in itself, which is, was the Tower of Babel actually built on the same site as the city of Babylon? And there's arguments pro, and I think it's a pretty interesting argument that it was.
Yeah, so, I think so. I know there's some people that suggest it's further south.
Yeah,
but anyway,
Ali Girl's question for both the Dougs, actually, because I know you guys are more literalists than say.
I only have a master.
But what I'm saying is it does say in Revelation that the city that kills the prophets, Babylon. Never killed a prophet of Yah. Never, not once that I know of. It was usually Judah or Israel that was killing the prophets.
Okay, so I do not agree that Jerusalem is
Babylon. I didn't say that, but
you're alluding to it. But you're suggesting it. You're trying to
well, how do you get around it then?
There's no
around it. Well, where's the city where the prophets were killed?
Okay, this is also
Sodom, the city where our Lord was crucified.
Yeah, where was that, Doug? Was that in Babylon?
No, it's of course a quote in Revelation. And
I was talking to
it's related to as Sodom and Gomorrah. That's how it's suggested. It's not suggested that it's Babylon, not at all.
Yeah, I agree with you, Doug. I think that it fails to meet the attributes in terms of. I don't believe Jerusalem is Babylon.
And look,
in Revelation 11, it does not say it's Babylon anyway. It doesn't even say it.
Right.
Does it?
No.
When you say Revelation.
And so I think there's also this thing in Bible, like when it talks about, and this is where we'll probably disagree, when it talks about Babylon, it always means the same thing. So and I think I have a problem with Jerusalem as Babylon. My view of that is if you want to facilitate the final Holocaust of the Jews, go teach that. Because that's exactly what will happen. Because it will be translated as, oh, look, see, the Jews really are trying to control the world. We need to get rid of them. I'm just telling you that is how it's going to go down if that continues to be taught.
And I agree. And I don't agree that Jerusalem as a city is Babylon. I think Babylon is a much larger system. I posted in chat earlier. I believe it's ancient Babylon. I believe it is Judaism. I believe it is Vatican. I believe it is in DC. And is in London, and is in Tokyo,
right?
And Buddhism, and in Mecca, and Babylon is so much bigger than just one location. But I actually agree with my two Doug friends here that it very well could be a literal rebuilt by golly city in ancient Babylon. It could be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't preclude it. I mean, if we were talking in 1600 right now. Like we didn't have internet and stuff, but we're all sitting around having this little round table and we've got a little, there's no audience. And we're like looking at prophecy through our 1600 lens. America doesn't exist, but let's say we're reformed people. Where are we pointing for Babylon? We are pointing for the Vatican if we're in Scotland or we're in Germany.
That's Neom. That's the one that they're actually starting to build. Okay. I'm just saying there's no And there's plans for a harbor, building a bigger harbor far south of Babylon on the Persian Gulf. And I've heard there was a Washington Post blog thing years ago that said, hey, we ought to move the UN to Babylon, around the time of one of the Iraq wars. And then there was planning to build the tallest building in the world. But so look, if it is Babylon, then there's got to be a lot of stuff happen. And it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just saying, is Neom they're starting to build. You look at the United Arab Emirates, it's taken 30 years for them, or over 30 years for them to build up that.
And it could happen. It's just that at least when I was a pre-tribber, it all needed to happen like today or tomorrow. And there wasn't enough time for things to happen. But we don't know when all this is going down. It might happen in 20, 30, 40 years.
I'm just saying this, but if it is Babylon in there, it's going to be this mighty commercial city, then it takes a while to build that. It doesn't happen overnight unless something happens. And maybe I think even maybe Gary Stearman's sort of suggested this a little bit. Maybe it's a virtual Babylon. Maybe it's a metaverse Babylon. And in this day and age, you can't say that that's completely out of the realm of possibility either.
And question for our guest, Doug Woodward, right now. In other words, so we look at the Daniel 2, and we look at the beast statue, which the gold head Babylon, and then Babylon then sort of devolves, if you will, to the Medo-Persian Empire, and then to the Greek Empire, and then to the Roman Empire, the legs of iron, which are split into two. And then, like I said earlier, can you not see how modern day Rome, if you will, which is universal and worldwide, I'm putting it right in your sweet spot right now, as far as
the Greco-Roman culture, of course, has dominated the Western world, since practically day one. I mean, there's a merger of it along with Jewish thought, and that's really kind of what Christianity became, was sort of a merger of the Greek and the Hebrew. And Doug Hamp can probably talk about that a lot better than I can, but certainly the Greco-Roman world is a dominant culture, and it has obviously influenced Europe as well as the United States and any nation that's, except maybe Japan, that claims to be a Western nation. I'm not sure. Did that answer your question, or?
Yeah, I just really think it's sort of an amalgamation, a mixture of this political religious system, and it's everywhere. It's permeated, like this falsity, this evil, if you will, has just permeated all of the entire world. And you just said, even in Christianity, we got this Greek stuff mixed in. We've got truth, and we've got a lot of Greek philosophy as early as the 2nd and 3rd century church fathers mixing in their whacked out ideas, and now that's gospel truth.
Well, Origen was very helpful in that respect.
Well, and so were Clement, and so was Ignatius, and so were a lot of other 2nd and 3rd century church fathers.
Right.
They were great at it.
So it appears that we're all sort of vestigial dispensationalists. We have a little bits and pieces or vestal. No, that's virgins.
We're all vestigial. That's that leads us down common pathways, I think.
Right.
Right. I sent, by the way, in the chat, I sent a link to the video that's out on my YouTube channel that goes into, basically the book and all the arguments and why ultimately I believe America is Babylon. And,
is that for everybody, Doug? Because you put it in the private chat. Okay.
No. Well, I put it in the chat. I don't know who it's addressed to here.
You put it in the private chat. I'll put it in the
Can you grab it and move it over and make it available to everybody? It's in my YouTube channel, and I'd love
to take a
look at it.
Yeah. Okay.
And here's where, and Doug Woodward, here's where I would say that if the situation does not change between the time of now and the end, which I believe is very, very close, and America remains a world political, economic, military power, I can't differ with you that we're the big right toe of Babylon. We are the economic power. We're the ones leading the world in abortion. We're the ones that exporting out 90% of not 90%, but 80+% of pornography to the world.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we are the world leader in smut. And yet we're, still some of us, I mean, again, there are pockets down here in the South, but even in these pockets, there's festering infection, in the Bible Belt.
All of the government, the emphasis and the leaders of our government in pedophilia, the use of SRA-DID techniques by the CIA, the evil that this country has done is just phenomenal. And so it's pretty much things that are public, our brothers and sisters in the United States don't know about. Although it's certainly written up now and it's very much available, still people aren't told that in the mainstream media, so they don't really know about all that.
Well, it's amazing. Like on that topic, we have this guy named E.P. Stein, who supposedly killed himself. And there's this list that exists of these powerful elites, not only in America, but global. And yet for some reason, we don't really want to talk about it. Why not? What in the world is going on? And that's not conspiracy theory. I mean, everybody even knows about it, and still mainstream media, your average person is like, who cares? Or, unless it's on CNN or Fox News, because even Fox really doesn't talk about that. Now, they'll talk a little bit about it. They'll maybe Tucker Carlson, who's like the only person I watch, will beat around the bushes. And I'm wondering right now if what's going on with him talking about alien disclosures and what is going? Is he like a plan? Is he John? I'd like to get John Haller's opinion on that. What's going on with Tucker? Because he is dabbling around with some
playing with
information.
I'm seeing it. Am I muted?
No, you're on.
No, we can hear you.
I'm seeing it a lot of places. This thing about aliens and what's going on and what's coming. I don't know. I never get to see any of this stuff. I don't know. I must not be very observant.
You're buried. Well, the thing I'll throw this where I go, just to I'll cut to the chase, is that I believe there are three Babylons in the end days. I believe the United States is the daughter of Babylon. I'll tell you why in a second. All right, just to kind of delineate here. The second Babylon is really a religious Babylon. Could be dominated by the Catholic Church, but maybe not exclusively the Catholic Church. All right, and then the third Babylon really is the political economic system of the world. All right, now the reason I argued there are three Babylons is that there are distinctions very plainly in Scripture that the three Babylons, they are destroyed at different times. They're destroyed by different means, and they're destroyed by different entities. All right. So let's talk about destruction first. The United States, I believe if it's Jeremiah 50:51, which I think it is, it appears that it will be destroyed by an army or an alliance of nations from the north. So, of course, I'm thinking, missiles fly over the pole and all that. And so it's destroyed by armies of the north. So much so, of course, that it says that no life will, ever be there again. Now, maybe that's hyperbole. I don't know. But all right. So that's the daughter of Babylon. Religious Babylon.
Hey, Doug, can I stop you for just a second?
Yeah.
So if America, you're saying America is Babylon. Is that right?
I'm saying that America is the daughter of Babylon, and I'm predicting that it will be destroyed. I believe it will be destroyed before the 7-year Daniel period. All right.
Okay. That means 330 million people are dead. That means that the entire country from New York to California is devastated.
I don't think it would play out that way, but I think that the United States will be completely taken out.
Well, so what I'm hearing though is you're not really taking it that literally or seriously, because you're kind of saying that this city that's going to be destroyed is actually the entire country. It seems like you're kind of being loosey-goosey there a little bit.
No. I in my writing, of course, I'm much more articulate.
I'm sure you are.
Yes.
And everyone should get the book, by the way.
Yeah. The land of Chaldea, of course, is talked about in Jeremiah 50:51, as well as the city of Babylon, right?
Okay.
And so the United States would represent the land of Chaldea, and Babylon would be represented, I think, by a combination really of New York City and probably Washington, D.C.
You don't think that two place names actually narrows it down that it has to be that place? Like you
look at the attributes of look at the attributes of Babylon in 50 and 51. There is no other place other than the United States that fulfills that.
But it does talk about the great mountain, right? Which
well, you're talking about Romans. What is it? Romans? I mean, Revelation.
No. In Jeremiah, it talks about the great mountain.
Oh, okay.
That term there, Kurgal, in Sumerian is Kurgal. Okay, and Kurgal was an epithet for Satan, for Enlil. So, I mean, there was always talking about Babylon. Like, that would be my point, is that, the place that Babylon started all this stuff, and again, I think if we look at New York City and we look at DC, we look at Las Vegas and all kinds of places around the world, they have the Babylonian spirit in them. And so they're part of the problem.
Right.
And so that's kind of the, to use my illustration, it's the Hollywood, that's worldwide versus Hollywood, the city.
Yep.
And I think what we have right now is that we sort of have Hollywood, the system, all over, but we don't have Hollywood, the city, and to use that same metaphor. So we have Babylon, the system, that's everywhere, but we don't have Babylon, the city currently. That would be my.
It hasn't been. It hasn't really been clearly demarcated. All right, but to carry on with what I was saying. All right, please. So I hear what you're saying. All right, the second Babylon, as I said, is the religious system, and it's destroyed by whom? Revelation 17.
The beast devours what you're calling the harlot, though.
Yeah,
correct?
The Mystery Babylon, the harlot, is destroyed by the beast, not by the alliance of nations from the north. All right.
She rides her for a period of time. I think she's riding her right now. She's been riding her for the past 1,800 plus years. Is my position. My friend Gavin Finley gets very upset about that. Yeah. He thinks there's just going to be this future 3.5 year period in which all of a sudden the harlot is just immediately going to start riding this beast. But if you can't see how Rome and false religion has controlled the king of this world for the past 1,800 years, then I can't help you.
Yeah. I certainly agree with you that that's the case. All right. So the issue there is, do we believe that there really is a literal destruction of Mystery Babylon by the beasts and the 10 kings? If you do believe that, then it would appear that Babylon that's being destroyed is not the same Babylon that's being destroyed in chapters really 19-20, in which that beast, which is talked about in more detail in Revelation 18, that beast is the world system, and who destroys ultimately comes to destroy all that opposes him, which is the system of mankind. It's the city of Babylon versus the city of Jerusalem. So Jesus, and how does Jesus destroy it?
And you go back to Daniel 2 there. Yeah, you go back to the 10 toes when the rock, the Ancient of Days, the chief cornerstone comes down and smashes it, and it destroys it. And so I say that there, and you have these three different personages, we'll say, of Babylon. They're destroyed at different times, in my view. They're destroyed by different entities, and they're destroyed in different ways. All right. So that's why I say that there's a good argument that there are three Babylons. I believe America is the daughter of Babylon. It sort of partakes in the others to some extent, but it's primarily the daughter of Babylon, and it will be destroyed by an alliance of nations. Now, how specifically will that happen? I talk about that. No, I don't think it will actually mean that 330 million Americans will die, but it's possible that 30 million Americans may die. It's possible that the atomic bombs will land on New York, Washington, Miami, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and so forth. That's what's been predicted by a lot of the more contemporary prophets that talk about visions and so forth that they've had as visions of America being destroyed. Seems like that the heartland, for various reasons, might not be the subject of the attack, notwithstanding the fact that radiation spreads. So, question actually to follow up on that for both. I'd love to hear Dr. Hamp's position, since we got two Dougs on here, and John's position that this what you're describing as a threefold Babylon. Could it also be looked at as one would be the beast, the political system, one would be the harlot, the harlot system where it had been so corrupted that John could not even recognize what the true faith had become.
Right.
And then the third system being this future beast amalgamation, sort of like what Gavin talks about when the two merge in this one final 3.5 year great tribulation, where you've got this one world faith, one world religion, one world government, and if you don't get in line, you literally cannot buy and sell.
No, I think that's actually what happens. I think the United States, for all intents and purposes, is destroyed and taken out of the way. If you believe that Ezekiel 38 and 39 is speaking of a war that occurs, I believe, at the outset of the period of Daniel's, the Great Tribulation, whether it's 10 years, 7 years, whatever. I believe Gog and Magog is literally going to happen at that time. And if that's the case, I also associate that with the destruction of the United States. I feel like that what I've said in my books is that it's likely that Russia or its allies would hit the United States and basically knock it out, so that Israel doesn't have the United States to be its ally when it faces its enemies. What
about you guys, Dr. Hamp and John, on that? Like, as far as like this kind of a tripartite, if you will, you've got the religious whore, and then you've got all false religions, which is, obviously still, it's just as bad or not as bad. And then you've got the political system, and they kind of devour each other in the end. And then Doug, to your point in your books, then this beast arises from the abyss, Nimrod, if you will. I know that's your position, is then he kind of takes over and starts kicking all the false religions' butts.
Yeah, it's possible that Nimrod really will be. It does appear that that's the one case of reincarnation in the Bible. That's either Nero or Nimrod or one or the other. It's the spirit of Antichrist, the son of destruction. Yeah. So it's very possible that will be the case.
I'm going to share some iconography that I've shared with you guys before. That this all goes back to a place called Babylon. You might have heard of it. And there's this woman who's riding the beast. Again and again and again, we see her riding the beast. And these are not even all. Now, this gets exported to Greece. It gets exported to India with Durga, right? You have Aphrodite, Adonis, Astarte. Not Adonis, but
it also gets exported to the Commonwealth Games opening ceremony.
Well,
recently,
that
sort of,
yeah, maybe. But it was exported. Look, this is Egyptian, right? Look, the woman, this is Isis, right? The same basic idea. She's on a beast, right? So this whole thing, this idea of a woman riding the beast is very much Babel. Okay. This false system started in Babel. The false, well, I shouldn't call it false, but this political monetary system that we have today
also started there.
It started there. Okay. Yeah. So that's all I'm trying to say is that the origin of all this stuff, right? It spread to the whole world. All the kings of the world are drunk on her fornication. I get that. Right. Yeah. I'm good with that. All right. I'm not good with it, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it all goes back to a particular place called Babylon, which is between the two rivers. It's called the area of Sumer, Shinar, right? We even have in Zechariah chapter 4 that there's going to be this woman in the basket. She's carried by storks or some angel storks or something like that. And they're taking her to set her up on her base in the land of Shinar, which is Sumer, right? And some kind of a temple or a house is going to be built for her in the last days. So, again, do I think America could take some serious blows? Sure, absolutely. Any place can take some serious blows. But I think that God has a particular vendetta against the very city of where it all started. It started in Babylon.
Aren't you saying then that you're believing that Babylon would be built up, would be rebuilt, and become the dominant political, religious center for Antichrist? That's essentially what
Yes,
that's what he believes.
Okay, well then you're
Yes.
pretty much in line with Andy Woods and
yes.
you're,
I don't think all the pre-tribbers are wrong. I think they're wrong on the trib, but on the rapture. But no,
no, that's
see,
what they
I'm
did.
more pre-trib than you are, Doug. Look at that.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
But
I want to host Doug one day on my show, and we'll just have a chat for about 2 hours about just why he's wrong. But a nice chat, Doug. How's that?
You mean like Doug Woodward or Doug Hamp?
No, you like Doug and Doug Hamp and I already talk about how we're wrong all the time.
Okay, yeah. Well,
you can host me, although I don't have any book to tout. Or
that's okay. You have a good mind and a good mouth, and that'll good. That'd be enough.
I don't know. I feel like saying that, the daughter of Babylon, that's what's going to be destroyed. I just feel there's all kinds of problems with that. So again, we don't know how quickly this is all going to happen. It could take a long time. On the other hand, and I'm putting this forward in some of my writings that, something major could happen in the world. There could be some kind of a nuclear exchange, perhaps. There could be a massive stock market crash. I mean, the world could change pretty quickly. I think we've seen that, World War I, World War II, things moved quite rapidly. Okay. And you can have a massive shift in power in short order, right? It went from really the UK being the dominant country. Where'd he go? Hopefully he comes back. But going from, the UK being really the power center to the United States being the power center in pretty short order. So I think that we could very much have a rebuilt Babylon in the actual city they're in Iraq.
I got cut off. Sorry.
We're glad you're back. But I was just saying that I think that Babylon, the actual city in Iraq, could be rebuilt in a fairly short order. And I don't think that it has to be the biggest city in the world to be, a powerful place. Washington, D.C. is not the biggest city in the world, but obviously it has a lot of clout, right? In certain areas.
Well, it's arguably.
Well, I was actually looking at that recently about like how big was Rome when Rome governed the world. By the way, this is Arnold Fruchtenbaum's sort of sequence of things where he shows everything. You see Babylon over there and the campaign of Armageddon. It's, hey, take care of Babylon, then I go over and take care of the rest of this. And I don't know if Doug Hamp agrees with that or not, but I just thought I'd throw that up there. But I was thinking about that the other day because, like, how big was Rome when Rome governed a big section of the world? And how was it that Rome sort of got into everybody's business, and how did they handle that? And they weren't that huge of a city. And we see commercial centers today that aren't incredibly large, certainly not the largest city. You got London and New York and kind of Tokyo and Shanghai are they are two of the biggest cities in the world, but other places are very influential, even though they're not the biggest. So I agree with Doug Hamp on that.
Yeah. I think really if there's if something were to happen into the world, and then you have somebody who comes with a lot of answers. So I've told you guys I'm writing a fictional book, and basically the scenario I have in there is that the Antichrist is going to set up, after the world has kind of gone through some economic challenges and whatnot, he's going to set up a new power center. He's going to buy super cheap land. Again, this is my kind of fictional idea based on the Bible. Okay, so it's speculation, obviously. But that this Antichrist figure is going to buy Babylon, all right, okay, for lack of a better word. He's going to then build it up. He'll have some cool technologies, and he's going to offer these new ideas to the world. The world's going to get excited about this. And what I would suggest that as far as the mystery Babylon, the woman that rides the beast part, is that all of these little trinkets are just the lures to get mankind on the hook. And once we sign off on this covenant of many, or whatever you want to call it, then there's no need to kind of keep giving out Turkish delights, because mankind has bit the hook, and now we can't get free. So again, I think it's a lot of it's a ruse. Some of it's very it's built up for a particular purpose, which is to get mankind to say, yes, we will do this. And that's what the woman on the beast has always been. She's always been the lure, to get us, humanity through our lust, whether it's sexual, power, money, fame, whatever. She represents that, and she will give you whatever you want. But once you have that, then it's too late, because now you're enslaved to Satan's system.
So do you believe that the woman, the harlot that's riding the beast, is Mystery Babylon, or is it distinct from Mystery Babylon, or both? To you, Dr. Hamp.
Yeah, I think the woman that rides the beast is Mystery Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see there's any other way to splice that.
So who's the beast then? Because the beast eats her.
I know. I understand that. Yeah. So I think
the 10 kings destroy it. So that's one of the curiosities is after they build Babylon, they turn around and destroy it.
Right.
That's
because
why
they don't need it any longer.
Yeah,
they don't need it any longer.
I think I'm sorry that geopolitics just says that what you've said, Doug Hamp, is hardly possible. It's just not likely. Now, if the Lord tarries for another 50 years, then perhaps.
And he might. That's the thing.
We'll all die of smog and other kinds of, die from the vaccines they give us and things like that.
Well, all I'm saying is, again, geopolitics today can change very quickly. So I hear a lot of the things about, geopolitics, and a lot of it's just rank speculation, because it can change so quickly. And there's things that we just have no idea are going to happen, and then they do happen. The killing of Archduke Ferdinand. I suppose nobody saw that coming. Maybe they did, but it happened.
They actually did. I was researching it the other day.
Yeah. Well,
it was actually being talked about, so it wasn't complete surprise.
Fair enough.
And I think some people were looking at it to use it as a pretext if it happened.
Yeah. Fair enough. But but still, it did happen, and then it changed the world economy. And the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, was still a major player up until then. And then after World War I, they were not, right? They were just no longer. And that was pretty hard to imagine because they were so big. Even the British Empire was never the same after World War I, especially World War II, right?
Right.
So I think things can change pretty quickly. But I also, now that I'm not a pre-tribber, I don't have this sense that it's got to happen right away, because the rapture is going to happen in any second. And we've got to have all these things in place. And I think that puts this unneeded pressure on our scenarios, because we're trying to figure out how it's going to happen,
right?
Because we think the world's pretty much going to end today or tomorrow.
Well, since I represent the pre-trib point of view,
fair enough.
It has to happen, tomorrow. No, I've always taken the position. The late Chris Putnam on the book cover, The Final Babylon, made the point. He said, that what Krieger and Woodward and D. McGrath, what they've written, is that if the Lord were to come back now, it almost has to be the case, because there's literally almost no other solution to how anything else other than the United States could be Babylon.
And I would say that right now, if we're looking at just through the 2022 lens today, and that could change in the next 2 years. We could be wiped out. We could be economically wiped out. I think we're seeing the little foxes, if you will, I call them, Doug, by the way, I call them the head puppets. They think they're the puppet masters, but they're really just the head puppets of this world, that they're the minions, if you will. And they're in a process right now of destroying this system in order to bring about this global system. And part of that could be either, destroying America. So we could all be alive in 2, 3, 4 years, and I'll be raising my goats and chickens and turkeys and not talking to you guys. But
clearly the globalists want America. There's two things that stand in the way of the final world government. One is really America and its system of government and its dominance. And the second is the middle class in America, which has pretty much been destroyed because we won't let certain things happen with our government, although that's changing. So, so, that's my sense is what's preventing it is the United States and the globalists are doing their best by opening the borders and destroying the dollar and all that to knock America out at the knees so that the world system, the world government can come into play. That's my view.
Mm-hmm. That's good. There's a couple of questions.
Look, we know that the prophecies will unfold in a real world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to look at some of the things coming together because been looking at this for a long time, and I'm not ready to say it's a 5-alarm fire yet,
mm-hmm.
but or a 5 horseman fire or whatever we would say. But I'm just saying it's very different. And when I'm looking at just the near term for the next couple of years,
mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of hope for. There's not a lot of reason to be optimistic,
right,
about the way it shakes out.
That's right.
Now, could be totally wrong, but then you have this, as I use the term convergence, you have this convergence of the, demographic collapse of some of these major powers in the world. And what do they do when they're going to collapse? They don't want to collapse, so they do something. They're desperate. And you have some of these that are named in Bible prophecy, Persia,
mm-hmm.
for example. So I don't know. There's just a lot of things kind of converging.
Not everything is literal, but a lot of stuff is literal. That's kind of the way you could look at it.
And I'm totally fine with the scenario. I'm good with the scenario that America, could be cut off at the knees.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's entirely plausible.
And
I even propose that America is reduced, but I still don't think that America is Babylon. I think that
mm-hmm.
America is going to fall as the major world power. We won't go completely away, but we'll be a wounded tiger, but a tiger nevertheless.
Okay.
So Doug, you don't see any distinction between the harlot, Mystery Babylon, and the beast. You think they're all three the same?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay. So
no.
But
Mystery Babylon and the harlot are the same thing.
Okay, so you think they're the same?
Yes.
That's Revelation 17.
They're absolutely
the question is who's Revelation 18? What Babylon?
But she's riding Nimrod, actually. Nimrod / Enlil.
Beast.
Yeah, exactly. So she thinks that she's driving, but he's just giving her a lift for a time, and so long as that she is beneficial
mm-hmm.
to his bottom line. All right. So they're both using each other, but ultimately he gains dominance at the end because he doesn't need her anymore. So he gets her off his back and eats her for lunch.
And would you say that the Vatican would be the number one candidate, like a Dave Hunt situation, for being Mystery Babylon?
No, I
know you think it's bigger, but
yeah, I think they're part of the problem. I don't think they are the problem.
No, they're a big part of the problem.
Yeah, like big old serpent heads, they worship now in
right.
in this thing that has the form of the head of a serpent. And then you've got this monstrosity evil thing where supposedly that's the resurrection of Christ, where the Pope stands and gives his audience. And you don't see that being like a total whoredom of what truth is.
I think it's part of the problem. I would agree with you, Scott.
Not individual Catholics, by the way. Not Catholics, but I'm talking about the system of Roman Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
But not an individual.
I would suggest that the system that we have, that Roman Catholicism, the Vatican in particular, is a system in part that was borrowed from
Babel,
right? and actually, somebody has the question. I want to address this. This is from Island Girl. What does Babylon mean in Hebrew? Confusion. Well, no. Okay. So here's the thing. It's Lahit Balbel is actually the word for confusion, okay, which is not the same root, right? Babel it's coming from Akkadian, and it means the gate of the gods. Okay, so think of the word Chernobyl. What do we think of when we think of Chernobyl? We think of nuclear meltdown. Okay, but of course, it doesn't mean nuclear meltdown, right? The word itself doesn't actually mean nuclear meltdown. But
does it mean wormwood?
It does mean wormwood, which is ironic. Okay,
yes.
Which is very interesting. But we think of nuclear catastrophe. Okay, and the word itself only took on that signification after, obviously, Chernobyl, right? So Babel took on the sense of confusion after God confused the languages. So now we associate it with confusion, right? But the actual word itself in the original, it goes back to gate of the gods. Okay, and I show all that in my book, Cryptic Image 2. But sorry, I forgot where I was. Oh yeah, so Mystery Babylon is this gate of the gods. That is ultimately what we're talking about. And Nimrod, the beast, he got all that started because it served his purpose, and he's working for Satan, obviously, right? So all of the iconography that we see in the book of Revelation, it traces its way right back to Babel. And again, I think we are doing a big mistake if we just ignore the fact that it all came from Babel. Like that's where it originated.
The religious system, all the gods. Yeah, absolutely.
And they got exported.
And that's the confusion, and it got mixed in with Roman Catholicism. And on the Christian branch, would you not say that she is the head hoe of this mixture and bringing in these other false gods and Easter bunnies and things of that nature into the faith? Would you not at least agree on that? Come on, man. She's guilty.
Look.
She's guilty. Game Hunt's right.
I'm not here to exonerate the Vatican. All right.
Okay.
But again, I think it's myopic to suggest that it's only the Vatican or they're the main problem. I think they're part of the problem. I think
joined with the Vatican.
Las Vegas is part of the problem. New York City is part of the problem.
They're a big part of the problem.
And like you just said, the NAR. Again, there are some solid denominations. I believe the church I was raised in, I am forever fighting with these Hebrew roots Nazis going, look, nothing about my faith has really changed other than I don't eat pork anymore. I now do my best to observe the feast, and I rest on Shabbat. And that's it. And they go, no, it's a bunch more. And I go, no, it's not. Stop it. Mm-hmm. There are actually some very solid, like John's church. I listen to John. I know what their church teaches. They are not this NAR nonsense stuff. There are the Baptist church that I'm a member of. They teach sin. They teach repentance. They teach the gospel of Christ. And so I will defend churches like that, even if I still think they've got a little bit of Rome mixed in with them. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a little bit of tradition that we need to get rid of, but at the same point in time, I will go to war defending people, and then I get, oh, you're just a schmuck and a shill for Rome or from. I'm like, I can't win either way. I mean, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, it's okay.
Well, so what I see some things in the chat about, Rome's not near a sea,
right?
The current location of Babylon isn't really near a sea either.
Right.
And Jerusalem certainly is not. So does that disqualify all of them?
If we insist upon a location and that those, I think, metaphors are to be taken literally, then yeah, you'd say, well, it can't be any of those because it has to be near the water. But I don't go down that path.
Why? Because you're uncomfortable going down that path, or?
Well, I don't think that. I think all the things you've talked about points out the problems if you go completely literal. Plus, I also think, that if you go into Revelation itself says there's this metaphor, and then what this metaphor means is this,
Well, and Revelation is, and I will actually not get on Doug, but this is where Doug and I differ sometimes. It's a book of symbols. In other words, trees don't necessarily mean little trees with green things on them. Trees represent people and humans. Mountains are kingdoms. I mean, in other words, you have to go back and unlock the code by using the Genesis all the way through Malachi
Right.
to understand Revelation. And I think that's one reason that it has actually been pretty much locked up until maybe the past 5, 10, 20, 30 years, as far as, and John points this out in his weekly prophecy update about the wise will understand. I believe there are a lot of people that have a lot more wisdom than in times past, and only for this reason. It's because it was sealed up and locked up until the end. Not that people in the 1600s or, maybe some of the early church fathers, I hate saying that word, but they had some insight. I believe they got it right about a literal Antichrist and about a literal millennium. A lot of them, most of them were premillennial. That'd be a good topic, Doug. The twisting of the early church fathers by Tommy Ice.
Ooh, that would be fun
to support a pre-trib rapture. But anyway. So,
what do you think they're selectively quoting them, Scott?
I think that they're doing something that would get the two of us in trouble, John. If we took 4 or 5 words out of context in an opinion and tried to represent to the court that's what that case actually said.
Well, that doesn't mean we don't try it if we can get away with it.
Exactly.
That's why they have
works occasionally. It depends if the judge is awake or not.
Sometimes they're not.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I mean, I think it's probably more complex than we've really thought all this time. It's just because when we sit here, I mean, think Doug Woodward. We did that conference. You were at that conference we did back in 2014 here in Ohio,
right? And
with and Chris Putnam and everybody, people who've passed on, but things have really changed since then. A lot.
You haven't gotten better, have they?
They haven't gotten better, and things are just more. I mean, nobody was talking about the World Economic Forum back in 2014.
Right.
I'll bet you can go through all those videos, which I think are still on YouTube someplace. You won't find anybody talking about World Economic Forum.
Right.
Don't think so. I mean, it really kind of came on my radar about 2017.
That's what I was going to ask
you. Then we start looking back, and I see Harari. This guy.
Never heard of him.
Didn't hear. I saw him at the World Economic Forum in 2017 or 2018. I can't remember which year, and I played some of the clips of him because it was like the imagery that he was using and all the stuff and how popular he was. And then I go back and I look and I see him speaking at Google headquarters in 2015. And I've played this clip a lot. I love coming to Silicon Valley because this is where the religions that will control humanity in the 21st century are being created. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Who? And they're all sitting there like, bro, he's so wonderful, he's so wise.
How long has the UN Agenda 2030 been around? But nobody really paid attention to it until around, like you just said, 2017, 18, 19, and in 2020, it's like everybody's eyes.
I think
follows prophecy.
I think it was 2017 when it was sort of morphed into the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 or 21 of those. So Agenda 21 morphed into that about 2017. And then everybody started adopting it and pushing it. And look at where we are. I mean, just look at, I can't even go to Canada, for crying out loud. I'm supposed to speak at a conference in Calgary next year. I can't go to Canada. Because I'm the equivalent of a leper, I guess.
Are you
I'm pretty sure they wouldn't let me in either.
We shouldn't say the word on because this is on YouTube, but it's because I haven't got the state-approved treatment for Charlie Vector 019er, but I had it twice, and so there is a thing called natural, for that. But it's just the whole thing is insane. Because if you're Canadian, you can come here and you can go back home if you haven't had the state-approved treatment. It's just so weird. I mean, everything, and we could go into lockdown again very quickly.
Oh yeah.
I'm so thankful to still live in Alabama. I think Alabama will be the last state in the union, other than maybe Mississippi or Missouri, that actually goes into a real lockdown. Florida. I mean, I never thought I would say I am thankful to live in Alabama, but I am now. God bless Alabama.
That shows we're near the end there.
Exactly. It's like the most backwards. It's the most backward state in the union forever, other than Mississippi and maybe West Virginia. And now it's like, I love being backwards when it comes to the state-approved treatment and restrictions.
It's just there's so many different things happening, and then you just see. I mean, we're on the verge of a worldwide famine.
Yeah,
let's be honest. Look, I went to a Sam's Club yesterday. Okay, now it was Wednesday afternoon, middle of the week, and I am telling you, the meat department was almost totally empty. All of the cases.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think Scott Harwell now has 14 turkeys growing in his garage and just bought goats?
I'm just telling you, it didn't freak me out, but it concerned me. Now,
I think we have a long way to go before we experience any kind of starvation in this country.
Yeah, I do think.
Frankly, all of us could use a little bit of it.
I think I've got a famine ready body. I've got a famine ready body. All you marathoners, I know where your stuff is, and I'll be.
So here's a question by Brian Rivera. He says, "Why would shipmasters be upset over a metaphorical sea?" Interesting question.
Well, is it they're upset over the sea, or are they upset over the ruination of the city that's up in smoke?
Well,
the merchants of the world are upset because they believe that the economies have been destroyed, and so that whatever riches they had, they're just gone. They've just gone down the tubes, or they've sunk into the sea.
Okay,
I believe that's the way that should be interpreted.
Okay.
Hey, let me say this real quick, and I Doug did not mean this in a mean way when he talked about in America. It could happen so quickly, my friend. I mean, groceries do not grow on the grocery store aisles. They really do not. And the powers that be, those head puppets, if and when they ever want to pull the plug on this economic system and crash it, it's any day they want to do it. When they're ready to do it, it will happen. And we will have no recourse unless you can hunt your own food, catch your own food, grow your own food. And again, I'm thankful to live in Alabama right now. I'm not saying that the stormtroopers won't come to Alabama eventually, but it's.
Are you on the Visit Alabama committee or something?
No, I'm actually buying land in Missouri to plan to move one day. But for right now, I'm just saying, I would much rather live in my state than Denver, Colorado, or what's happening in this world right now, or New York City, or Atlanta, Georgia, for that matter. Not any big city.
Things can change very quickly. Yeah.
So. And
I think that's part of this whole discussion. I think it'd always be part of the big discussion, is things that can change quickly. Let me just point out, for those of us who take a more literal Babylon is actually Babylon thing. With all these huge mega engineering projects that we're seeing, I mean, China is really leading the way in mega engineering, and they're able to build skyscrapers, 30-story skyscrapers in 30 days. I mean, it's unreal what they're able to do. They're drilling through mountains, they're making railroads at just a breakneck speed, and I think things can happen very, very quickly. So it would not surprise me if they did not bring the sea up to Babylon, right? That's what I'm suggesting, is that you could actually move where the sea is, right? I mean, and we kind of did that 100 years ago with the Panama Canal, to some degree, right? And I think something even greater could happen today, where they could really make it different. So, one, I don't think that it's going to happen tomorrow. I think I still have a long view on this whole thing. Yes, things can change quickly. Economics and the political situation can change quickly as well. But I also suggest that we have, still some years to go.
And I hope, again, I say this all the time. I hope and pray that we still have another 2, 3, 4, 5-ish, 6-ish years of this new normal. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm starting not to think that. I'm starting to think that the earlier time frame that I've always believed Yeshua could return around 2028-ish is looking more and more likely. But I'm still hoping, for the sake of the world and those still in Babylon, those that he's saying come out of her, my people. I'm hoping we have another 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and before it gets too bad. And again, I just think right now he's still gently flapping his wings. I've said that before. All of this, what's happening is not just for judgment against America and the world. It's also, the main purpose is to get people to repent. And really the why of the matter that's more important than anything. Mm-hmm. So is the why is Revelation even written? The whole purpose is to get people to repent. And,
we would be missing the point, wouldn't we, as evangelists, if we didn't take advantage of the difficulties that we're experiencing and point out, that these are, you could say, like a Fruchtenbaum, the footsteps of the Messiah. Things are happening, and they've been happening for 100 years, but as John Haller would say, it's converged in such a way that it's just not the same. It's really, really close to what.
Yeah, and we haven't had like a huge war like World War II. I mean, that certainly has not happened. But then,
not yet.
And then this week they're talking about it's sort of starting to hit. It was sort of buried in the Arab press about, hey, we got a solution to peace in the Middle East from the Saudi prince, crown prince.
Oh.
And I talked about that some on Sunday, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. And it's like, it's like flying under the radar. Mm-hmm. So, and then, I get in a fight with, people get really upset when I say, I don't think the seals are open yet, but the foreshadows are here. And then, oh no, the seals are open. And this was the first seal. And this was, and I'll be honest with you. I don't, I think we need to have a big committee of people to say this is that which was prophesied, because there are too many lone guys out there, mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, and I'm willing, convince me, and maybe we should have somebody on to convince us, but certainly we're seeing all of that stuff happening and starting to happen and starting to come to fruition. I mean, this nuclear plant in Ukraine could get blown up this week, and we got another Chernobyl. I mean,
I just remember back in 2008, the world was ending. I was reading Zero Hedge all the time, and we had, global starvation. I don't know where you were, Scott, but I was reading all this stuff.
Yeah, I was saying,
wait a second. I was doing
this to me all the time. You call me out, you won't let me answer.
No, brother, just give me a second. I was still talking. You were shaking your head, and I'm talking. So, I mean, I was doing similar things to what Brother Haller is doing, this is it. There will be signs. I had all this, and people were just lapping it up, right? And I was giving you, there was some weird wheat virus that was going to destroy all the wheat stores and the wheat harvest, and I was showing all the evidence, and nothing happened. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Let's be cautious. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying, let's be careful, especially the people that suggest that the seals are opening. I think that's nonsense.
Can I respond now?
Please.
And I would differ.
You have the floor.
I would differ on this, and mainly because, just like you said, in 2008, and when people were freaking out in 1999 and 98, and when people were freaking out in the early 90s, and even when I was a teenager in the 80s, and I wish I was on YouTube back then so I could play it for you to prove this, but I was like, we are not even close to 2030 yet. He is not coming back until 2 days is up. We are now getting really, 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 really close to there being 2 days, 2,000 years since he returned to his place. And I don't think that we're seeing these events align and converge and accelerate, as John points out. And it's a coincidence. And again, Doug, the other part, that this is where me and you totally align. Since 2017, you started to see this before I did. But since 2017, there's just been awakening, this return to this discovery of, wait a minute, We certainly don't replace Judah, but we're Israel. I'm as much an Israelite as any Jew ever thought about being, but without replacing them. And I believe that is prophetic of what Deuteronomy 30 requires before Israel is regathered to the land. All of Israel, that supernatural regathering that we see Judah and Israel brought back. That was not happening to a wide extent in 2007. In 2008, 2009 is from what I now know, that's when the first little, other than the groundbreakers like Halisa and Brad Scott and maybe Bill Cloud and some others, but other than them, that's when there was a first a Ephraim awakening. People started going, wait a minute, Ephraim became a multitude of nations? What does that mean? You mean to tell me it got scattered to all the nations? And then in 2017, Doug, when we had that, and I believe it was the Revelation 12 sign in the fall of 2017, that is when, I don't think it's coincidence that I just said it one day, oh, wow, these Jewish feasts, which now that makes, and I started studying them, and they're not Jewish. They're his feast, and they're for his people, they're for us, they're for Israel. All these things are merging and aligning and accelerating, and that's why, again, not date setting, but almost shouting from the rooftops or the mountain or the walls of Jerusalem, going, guys, repent. And again, that's the why. Why is he giving us these warnings and these signs? Why are we hearing about a worldwide famine coming? I mean, seriously, it's America. If you listen to the farmers, if you look at the how we fed this world with the fertilizer that is now going to be in severe shortage, and John posts all the, not just prophecy nuts, he posts secular stuff week by week. The research is there. Nothing in 2008. That was all about economic collapse. You had
but it wasn't though. I was watching they were talking about the collapse of grain. I'll try to find the article. I have it. I've got the article. It's in my notes. I can pull it up for you. And they were talking about massive wheat shortages were going to happen imminently. There was going to be some virus. And I mean, it was all back then, Scott. And we were talking about some virus that was going to, I don't know, escape or something, was going to kill a bunch of people.
But it hadn't.
All I'm saying is let's just be cautious, right? Do I think we're getting close? Of course I do. Of course I do.
Well, and that's what I say is I don't want to be sitting there myself and saying this is that.
Right.
But this is kind of important to watch. This is a chart that came from Reg Kelly's group, Mystery of Israel. Tom, I can't remember his last name, prepared it. This is Killianism, that we talk about, the 6-day, 7-day thing. Now, there's some problems with it, but I think Sam had pointed out that, well, we really don't know that each day, the Bible says each day. And I agree with him, but it does say for 2 days, then I will do that. So there's clearly identification in Hosea 5 about 2 days, or in Hosea 6 of 2. After 2 days, he will revive us. So there is a specific place where it talks about 2 days. It may not talk about the first 4 days that much. It talks about the 2 days. And it does seem to fit, but we'll see. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, the rabbis were talking about breaking the world or the human history into 7
days.
Epochs of 7 days of 1,000 years.
And it kind of fits. I mean, it's not exact. And
I'm there.
I wonder, here we have Doug Woodward, who did a complete Bible thing about the problems with dating and in the Masoretic text. So I don't know what he thinks of this chart, but
you are muted, Doug. Doug, you're muted.
Hey, Doug, you're muted.
I would caution people that that buy into the 6,000 years and that we're in the 7,000 year, that if they look at some of the church fathers, because Doug Hamp, you're right, they were saying though at the time of Jesus that the 6th millennium was when Jesus was the Messiah was to come, and then that's what got the rabbis busy, the Pharisees that became the rabbis, to alter the chronology because they wanted to invalidate Jesus as the Messiah. Right. And so the Septuagint, and of course I argue in the book, I got all kinds of support for it, that that Adam and Eve were more like 5,500 BC rather than 4,000 BC. So,
right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, and I think you have that one place in Turkey, and that's sort of the problem, is because some of depends how these earlier sites are dated, like the Tepeki or whatever the name of that place up is in Turkey.
Göbekli Tepe, yeah, and the pyramid and the Sphinx and all that. Right, exactly. Was there a pre-Adamic race?
No.
Hamp would say no. Hamp would say Lucifer was created on the.
So the sons of God didn't shout for joy when the foundations of the earth were laid?
Yeah, they weren't created yet.
That's another discussion.
How are they shouting for joy? How are they?
I know.
If they're not
They
around.
were created on probably day 2. Fair enough.
When were the foundations of the earth laid?
I think we went over.
Oh, la, la. Yeah, we're out of time, Scott. Sorry. We're out of time. I'd love to answer your question, but we're out of time. Yeah. And actually, we are out of time. So, Brother Doug Woodward, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey.
And where can people get your book?
Yeah, well, they can certainly get it at Amazon if they like. You know, the name is Will Babylon Be Rebuilt in the Last Days? And you can get it from Amazon. You can get it from Prophecy Watchers, and you can even get it from Little O' Me if you go to faith-happens.com to my store, and you'll see it's part of a bundle special and all that. It's $14.95 retail, and I haven't done a Kindle version of it yet, but I may or may not. I don't know yet. So anyway, they can find it there, and then again, it's on my YouTube channel, which people can find via Doomsday Doug on YouTube. Nice. You can find it's one of the most recent videos that drills down into all this, and I'm just I feel bad that I couldn't get the sharing function to work, but never fails.
And we made it all the way through the show, and nobody's mentioned Corrupting the Image 3. So
yeah, really,
I feel obliged to do that.
Thank you.
Needs to be a promo there for the Corrupting the Image 3.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for letting me be a part of this. It's kind of my turn inside the barrel, so to speak. And I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys, and hopefully, I think I brought a pretty good subject to the party.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Really
I agree with a lot of what you say on Babylon.
Thanks.
Just I think we meaning the church, all of Israel is going to be all the way through it until the very end. So that's the discussion I want to have with you. You can invite me on your channel, or you can come on mine.
I'll have to kind of polish up my arguments for the pre-trib that if we're going to do that.
Oh, please do. I would love to have a chat, because we're not going to do it.
We can have you back and we can talk about, pre-trib.
Are we still live?
Yeah, we are.
If you guys want to, I'm game, all the time for these things. So,
John, was there something you wanted to share? I see.
No.
Okay.
No.
Very good. Well, thank you, everybody. Please do like and subscribe to this channel. If you want to help support it, you can go to patreon.com/Doug Hamp, and you can give as little or as much as you want. We are having a trip in 2024. We're going to Israel. So go to thewaycongregation.com, and you'll see a link that says Israel. So check that out. It's going to be a great trip. So that'll be April 2024. Thewaycongregation.com has all the information about that. So I hope you will join us for that. Thank you for joining us this evening. Until next week, many blessings.